And now for something completely different on Test Gear Teardown. Last time we had a very fine Fluke digital multimeter. This time it's going to be an analog multimeter. In fact, it's my very first multimeter that I ever had. This is a meter that I bought with my father from Henry's Radio on Edgware Road in London. We went to London, we went to Henry's Radio. It's the only place you could really buy that kind of instrument at the time. There were no Maplin shops to speak of. There was only the one branch. Maybe that even hadn't opened yet. Henry's Radio and Edgware Road was the big place to go for electronics and radio gear. We went there and we bought this very fine little multimeter. But this rather cheap little multimeter. It's analog. It's only 1,000 ohms per volt, so it actually draws a milliamp from your circuit when it's at full scale. So that will generally affect the operation of your circuit. Certainly, if it's a simple transistor circuit, you're trying to measure a voltage, it's likely to affect the operation of the circuit. Let's put it into ohms. The dial here has faded so much, I just know that that's the position it always has to go into. Get it into ohms. You can just read it. There's 1 milliamp and 100 milliamps for current ranges. There's 10 volt, 50 volt, 250 volt and 1,000 volt, if you trust it with 1,000 volts on this thing. DC and AC. It has a battery in it, should function. If I just short the probes here, we should see it read. There it goes, in its ohms range. It's been a bit modified over the years. These are not original. I fitted those when the internal printed circuit board fell off inside, and these are most definitely not the original terminals. It was fitted with very cheap and simple, rather crude 2mm size sockets for the probes to plug into, which was annoying at some point about 20 years ago, and I thought, right, when I've done the repair for the board, I'll fit it with 4mm sockets, which of course are huge compared to the original ones, but at least it meant that it takes standard leads. Quite why I did that, but anyway, I did. I drilled out the original ones. They were a bit loose. Put in the new sockets. On the side here we've got the usual ohms zeroing pot, and inside I think we'll find it has a AA battery, which is the supply for the ohms range. Just can't take that off there. That's got it. Right, so there we have it inside. There's the AA battery for the ohms range. This is the back of the meter movement, the actual electromagnetic part of the device. There's a coil and a magnet, makes the actual measurements work. Coil of wire here around the edge of the board, that's most likely the current shunt for the 100 milliamp current range. You can see the ohms zeroing adjuster there, and you can see that it's just a single rather badly done PCB. This is a PCB. It isn't even fiberglass, it's SRBP. I think it would have been FR4, and that forms the switch as well as holding all the parts of the meter together. These two nuts are not original. That's where there originally were two screws. The plastic broke, so I drilled it out, put two bolts in. Those two diodes look like I've changed them as well. I think I burnt out the rectifier. That's the AC range rectifier. Two diodes, not original. I think I burnt them out somehow. Can't remember how I did that. You can see a couple of resistors there for the range selection. There's a few more of those in various places around the circuit board, and on the here you can see the back of the terminals, which were originally just 2mm, and there actually are holes in the PCB where the tips of the plugs had to fit through. All been replaced with bits of wire and new terminals. Oh well, it was fun at the time. So that's it really. That's very simple moving coil meter. Draws a milliamp from your circuit and therefore makes your circuit stop working when you measure it. AC and DC ranges, DC current only in this version. AC current was quite an advanced feature at the time. Measures to 100 milliamps, that's 0.1 of an amp, tenth of an amp. Still functions, still usable, although I haven't actually used it for real for some time. But there we have it, my very first analogue multimeter, purchased from Henry's Radio on Edgware Road in London.